Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome to Mocha Money Mondays. I'm Ashley Scott, one of your P3 Elite coaches, and I am here with Miss Rhonda Novak.
Good morning.
Co-host this morning. How you feeling this morning, Miss Rhonda?
Hey, listen, I'm on the game. I'm ready to rock and roll. We got a hot topic today, and I am all for it. So, hey, girl, let's get excited in here.
Okay. I see we also have some other P3 coaches on the line. So I want to shout out Miss Laura and Miss Donetta Wells today. But we're going to jump right into our topic, which is, are you ready for a capital raise?
Come on, girl.
Let's talk about it, because there are, first of all, when you're in business, even just getting started, you need some capital, right? You can't start a business without having the money that it takes to even just register the business with the state, right? You need to have operational bylaws and operational agreements if you're doing your business right? If you're going to have a firm foundation. So you need to be able to pay for a lawyer unless you are a lawyer yourself, or you might have to pay for Rocket Lawyer or Zoom Lawyer. You're going to have to pay somebody, and you're going to need money to do it. Some people decide to raise money very early through their family and friends, and some of us don't take on money till later on because we decide to bootstrap everything and pay for it out of our pocket. I know my job was my first investor, right? I would go to work. That W-2 income is how I was
funny.
Okay.
Yes.
To be able to get into my entrepreneurship path and journey. So we're going to get started today. And Ms. Rhonda, you laid out some amazing thoughts that I want us to really go down the line on, as far as this idea around raising capital, that there are really two ways that one might need to raise capital. There might be debt service, or there's going to be equity raises where you're getting some of that money from other investors, people who are looking for passive incomes, or some people who want to be actively involved in the business. But either way, you're going to need to, at some point, get some additional capital, whether that's to expand or meet the needs of your demanding customer base. You might need more inventory. You might decide you need office space, or you might decide you need human resources, people, customer service and sales employees. And when you get to that point that your small business doesn't have all the cash it needs, you're going to have to ask yourself some questions around raising capital, right? That's what we call questions, are how you get to there, right? And so before you get to the point of raising capital, you got to have a firm foundation. And I want to talk with you, Miss Rhonda, what does a firm foundation look like before you start raising capital? What does that look like to you?
Well, first of all, you talk about a couple of different types of companies. You mentioned in the intro about, if you're starting a business, that starting a business, could require you, maybe $5,000 or $10,000, just depending on what's what. If you've got that money saved, you don't need any to go anywhere. So when you talk about firm foundation, I mean, that's different from a business standpoint than it is from like going to ask for money. So that foundational piece, if you're going to ask for money, whether you're going to ask your parents, or you're going to ask the bank, you're going to ask investors, is you need to have some idea about why you need the money. That's the first thing we sort of think about in sort of this whole capital raise scenario, is why do you need it? Sometimes people think they need money just, okay, because I want to pay this, or I'm not making enough. So why do you need it, and how are you going to pay it back? Most investors, that's really what they're concerned about. I have coached so many people with respect to trying to raise capital. I used to help companies get prepared to ask for that capital raise, and entrepreneurs are very accustomed to selling their dream. And every dream, God, we can get it done, but they forget about the fact that the company that's investing in them is really not interested in your dream. They're interested in their return. So when you talk about a firm foundation, we're really talking about you getting your head right around what it is you're asking someone to do and why you're asking them to do it. And secondly, step out of yourself in terms of saying, why, how come this is such a great idea? And flip it to say, why would anyone want to invest in you? So if I give you money and you don't want to give me my money back, that relationship sucks. So you really have to think through becoming a partner with the people that you're asking money from. So it's still going back to this firm foundation. What does it look like? It looks like you need to really understand your lender or your investor. And two, you need to understand how you're going to pay them back and why you need the money. So that's just like the basic piece right there. That's the basics. What are you doing? Why you need the money and how you're going to pay it back.
You
Now,
also mentioned knowing your business inside and out first, right? Like before you can even know, why you need the money in the first place, you really got to know your business inside and out, right?
that is
So
true.
that's one of the things that I know you said when we were kind of preparing for this show that I think is a big part of that firm foundation as well.
Absolutely. Well, that's a part of knowing what you need the money for. So when you know your business and you know what you're doing and why you're doing it, you know why or how you're going to expand. Now, let's talk about like the smaller companies may want to go to the bank for 10 or 15, maybe $50,000. You may take a second on your house for that. You don't really need to ask anybody anything, right? Because you just go when you personally sign that check and the bank will give you the money. And if you make it enough, you'll pay them back, et cetera. But let's talk about if you really want to raise a lot more money. Say you need $1 million, $2 million for whatever reason. You say you need $2 million. Now, as a financial girl, I'm going to challenge that. But for this conversation, I'm going to use it as an example. Let's say you need $2 million. If you say you need $2 million, one of the things you need to understand, if you go through your business, like look at your processes, what is missing? Why do you need $2 million? Is it really $2 million? You would have gone through your business plan. And when I talked about business plans, every aspect of that plan has a financial piece to it. If it's talking about management, how much are those people going to cost you? If it's talking about advertisement, how much is that going to cost you? If you're talking about marketing, how much is it going to cost you? Every part of your business plan is represented in the financial statements, which you will need if you're going for investment capital. And so let's move to a higher number. Let's say we're going to $2 million and we want to ask for venture capitals. First of all, venture capital is typically alone a lot more than $2 million. But okay, so angels are usually a group that will give you maybe a couple million. VCs typically are a little higher than that. They're going to come in around, a lot more, several million, tens of millions of dollars typically. Okay, so one of the things about this in terms of getting that money is being able to articulate to your investors why you need it and if you're going to scale. VCs are typically interested in you scaling. They don't really care about you trying to get a mom and pop. You just want to buy a building next door. They don't care about that. They really want you to scale. So you won't get that kind of money until and unless you are in your business head enough to understand that what you are doing, what you're selling, what your business is all about is scaling. That is what an investor is looking for most of the time. Angels are a little different. They may look for you because they have a social thing. They've got a pet project that they really like. So they're a little easier sometimes because they're not necessarily as interested in scaling as much as just getting their return and helping the environment or helping the socio-economic or whatever that story is. So we consider those to be angels. VCs, I'm not going to call them out their names, but they are typically the group that's really wanting a lot more money, and they'll put in for several years, but that game is a lot different. Okay, so bank investing, you definitely gonna have to take your numbers in. You're gonna have to know your business. You're gonna know how much money you're making, what your pricing is, who your customers are. You're gonna have to have that story, that conversation with the bank, and or with an angel, and or with a VC.
Okay, so these are some really good thoughts around, okay, who can I get my money from? But now, when you're considering the steps for raising capital, and you have to make a choice as to whether or not, like you said, will I raise the capital through these angel investors, through these VC capitals? Am I going to the bank for debt notes? When you're using debt, I know you talked about having a clear plan, like a clear plan for how you service the debt, having the fees. So what are some of the other things around maybe counting the cost and understanding the risk of debt that we should be concerned about, Ms. Rhonda?
So let's go back and talk about VC money and angel money. Typically, those investments are not debt. That's what we call equity. So if depending on how you set your company up, which is another reason why you need to know your company inside out. A lot of times when you do LLCs, usually you may have, one owner or two owners, maybe you got 3 or 4 people in there, but you don't do stock. Because you just got, like we share, we 50, 33, whatever. We just got a group of people. But when you are really going to raise capital, you need to have shares of stock because that's how it's done, right? So I haven't gotten into the nuts and bolts of sort of the equity part, but equity, as I described this, is really more about we're going to cut this company up into little tiny pieces, and the tiny pieces have a certain amount of value, which is what we would call a valuation. So that's equity because you're now buying into the company. You're giving away, you're selling a part of your company for money. That's what you're doing. So, and if you go to the stock market, some of the companies that are on the S&P 500 or out there and they're selling stock, that's really what they've done. They've taken a part of their company and they've sold it for money. Okay, and then that money gets dividends. Okay, so let's put that to the side and let's talk about debt. Debt, you're not selling your company at all. What you're doing is saying, listen, I want to borrow $2 million from these investors, and I promise to pay you 12% interest. Now, the interest that you offer for this debt may or may not be market rate, depending on where you are in your business line or who you get to offer you this debt. If it's usually it's going to be sort of a larger offering. If it's some kind of raise, it's going to be a larger offering, and so they may do $2 million of debt. You know, there's corporate debt as well, what we call bonds. But you've got this sort of debt that's going to be out there, but you've got to pay this interest on this debt, and there's certain ways you can structure it. This call is not today about how you structure these types of raises, but the fact that what do you do to prepare for them? But there's certain different ways that you can structure the debt. But let's say that you're deciding, you know what, I ain't giving nobody my company because, you know, we always want to run everything and say, I'm in charge and this is what we're going to do. Yay. All right. So I'm going to just do debt. Then be prepared to pay those, however they structure the deal. You're going to have to pay 10%, 8%, whatever that interest is. You're going to have to pay that debt, which is why you need to know what you're going to use that money for. Because if, say, in fact, you're borrowing $2 million, $150,000, you're going to have to be able to service the debt, including the interest on the debt. So just think of it like buying a house. You got $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 you put on your house. You know that note's coming in every month at $2,000. You better pay it or they come to get it. Okay,
that's right.
So same kind of principle. And it is what it is with respect to debt. You have to pay it. And you'll have that interest rate that you'll have to negotiate or kind of work with. And I will say that it's a lot easier sometimes to get debt depending on the amount than it is to do the other way, because with equity, you have more partners and typically they will have something to say about how your business is going to be run.
I've experienced that. And there's people who are experiencing that right now. I always like to point to real world examples. And I think we might have mentioned this in a previous month of Monday, or maybe in our conversations preparing for the show, but there's a real world example of that happening right now with the Gathering Spot, this national co-working space that has taken off and had great success. And they partnered with Greenwood, which is a Black-owned bank that has prominent folks like Killer Mike and Andrew Young, who are at the helm of that. And they removed one of the original founders from his role as chief financial officer.
Right.
And so when you give up equity, it can absolutely make a difference in how you are able to not only run your business, but if you will still be running your business.
Correct.
You've done so. So
it doesn't change the fact that you're still a shareholder in the business, but you don't have, if they kick those boys out, they no longer have operational effect on the business. They're now, and a lot of times VCs will do that too. If they see you as not a capable CEO, they will bring somebody else in.
And so that leads us to the things that I think we do need to consider, which we talked about in the show notes. Vet your investors and know that all money ain't good money, right?
Honey. Think about this, like a family scenario, right? Where you have someone that may borrow from you. We're gonna make you the good guy, right? You got an uncle, you know, somebody who ain't doing right. I ain't gonna put them out there like that, but they come and they ask you for money. You know, you're not gonna get your money back. You already know that. You know, ain't Sissy been an alcoholic all her life? You know she is going out here to buy this liquor. She ain't getting no job. She is doing the most in these streets. She a hustler. You ain't nobody that. Okay, so vetting the investor simply means that just because people say that they have enough money to invest in your business does not mean they're gonna stroke that check. And even if they do stroke the check, you really need to understand that their values are your values. Let's go back to the example you have with the gathering spot. So if the heart of the owners or the founders of the gathering spot was really to, come in and support a place for people of color to share their business and do all that, and their new owners really don't care about all that, they're trying to make this thing a cash cow. All the stuff that they did to speak to the social, economic of color, people of color, that's going out the window because the values are different. So when you vet an investor, you look at, even if it's a bank, say for instance, I don't want to call any banks names because I don't want to have any issues, but there are some banks out there that are really geared towards larger businesses. They don't have anything to do with smaller business. Their policies don't have anything to do with that. They may loan to smaller businesses, but that is not their heart. So when you start looking for a bank or somewhere to go to borrow money, look at who they invest in. Look at where they have their interest. Where do they invest back into the community? You look at things that matter to you because that's how you're going to be seen and treated. So vet your investor. If it's a VC, if it's an angel, look them up, figure out, see who they've invested in before. Do they have a portfolio? Where do they go spend their time? Who do they care about? What do they care about? So when you're looking, because remember, anyone who puts money into your business, they are invested with you, and they will or will not support what you have depending on what their values are. So I say make sure your values match up with your investor, because if you don't, and I've seen it happen, it's bye-bye, baby, bye-bye, baby. It's a lot of tension. It just goes bad fast. It really does. So it's not just the money.
It's not just the money. And so when you're really, let's bring it on home around this idea that you got to have good help. You cannot do all of this without a proper business attorney, someone who's negotiating and doing this stuff on your side, that knows your business as well, who's looking out for your best interests. And when you have that really good business attorney and you do what Ms. Rhonda said, you ink that deal, right? Get that contract in writing. It has to be not just in the benefit of the investor, because I can even speak to the fact that sometimes when you onboard this money, you feel beholden to those investors. You want to give them, as much as you can, because you don't want them to walk away, especially if you're in a place in your business where you've got something great. And if you just get that money for that next purchase order, it's going to be the best Christmas ever. You know what I mean? So you have to really understand, what is your end game, yes, but don't feel like you got to give the whole cow away because you're onboarding some people's money, right? Don't feel like you have to go over and beyond and know what you're willing to give up and what you are not willing to give up, right? Because sometimes that money's just not worth it. If it is going to cause you stress, the ability to sleep at night, wondering if you're going to get kicked off your own, out of your own board, you really need to understand, like, what is my no, and make your no mean no. Because if you're just willing to do whatever to take on money, then you probably shouldn't be taking on money, because that means you're desperate, and you never want to be in a desperate position.
I need you to say that again. Do not be desperate, because when you're desperate, you can't walk away. If the opportunity comes, you're going to take it. If it's a bad deal, if it's horrible, you're going to look over all that, because the first thing you're going to think about is that desperate place in your heart. And this is going to answer that, and I'll deal with everything else later. And everything else later is 10 times worse. It's like you trading the frying pan for the fire, honey. They don't have a conversation with someone. And I forgot to mention exit strategy. So have a way to get these people out. So if you're borrowing money, then the terms of the deal is usually going to be structured. So you're going to be out in 5 years or 10 years or whatever the term of the loan is. But when you're dealing with the angel, know the terms well enough to know how you're going to get out of the game. Because typically if you're raising capital to scale, you're going to go to another round. So we call first round that, so that seed funding, that round, and you have second round, and you finally get to the round, and then finally you get to IPO. So there are different rounds in capital raising. We're not talking about that today. We're just talking about the fact of how, when you get ready. I'm also going to say this: research. Go out there and read up on all kinds of stuff. Is valuation. Read up. Go find some of the bad, horrible stories out there that have happened, that are publicized. Go find some of the good, profitable ones, and find the stories. Not just, you know, like if you're a woman, look for someone who's had a story similar to yours, because the game is different for women. The game is different for people of color. So go out there and do your research for the person who looks like you. Don't look at it just because, oh, that's not gonna be the same. Okay, just putting that out there so you know, these people went and had money from the 501 from the no, ma'am. No, that's not. Just find a similar story. Just research high and low and get your mind right. And this is a place where once you do have your mind right, then you want to bring this attorney in to help you negotiate the terms. For instance, if your investor comes back and says, okay, I'm gonna give you $275,000, I'm gonna want my money back in 4 years. You and your attorney, y'all go through that and make sure that you are covered in what those agreements are. Read every line. And if you don't read every line, make sure you trust your attorney, because some of them ain't good either. So you know, your job is to make sure that you are covered. When you find this attorney, make sure you've done your homework. So just because they got attorney on their name don't mean they legal, don't mean they straight, that's not what that means. Guys, out here in this world is for real. You really have to research everybody, look for values, for attorneys, for investors, for partners. Make sure your values are similar. Otherwise, you're going to have a lot of problems.
Thank you for this, Ms. Rhonda. I want to just reiterate for our audience today some of the main things that I think we have to consider if you're thinking about, are you ready to raise capital? 1, know your business inside and out. 2, know why you need the funds and how your funds will be used. And 3, have a clear way to pay back that capital you raised and an exit strategy. Those are the 3 things that we want you to make sure you take home from this conversation today. And I'm going to open the lines now. I do see we have some other folks on the line. If you have something that you want to ask or something you want to add to the conversation, feel free to unmute yourself this morning and share your insight.
We scared them, Ashley.
We scared them.
We scared them. They don't. Nobody wants to talk about this borrowing money part.
No, I do. I definitely agree with all of you ladies' thoughts. Only because we have been through this process on, you know, so many levels over the last few years. You know, developing the understanding of what that ask needs to look like, vetting those relationships to make sure that they are in alignment with the thought processes of the team, you know, and all of those different things. So it's a continuous thing when you are in the thought process of raising money, but you definitely need to understand your business, definitely need to understand what the money is for, definitely need to understand how you're going to pay it back. Like, that is just so important on all levels. And you know, I think this was a gem. This is definitely a gem for people to, you know, be able to get that understanding, and then know that as a P3 coach, you guys can provide them the resources to get in alignment with those things. I think that's going to be awesome as well.
Right. It's like a marriage, Laura. When you're partnering up, it's very much like a marriage. So yeah, thank you for that.
All right. Well, thank you all again for listening to us and getting these insights. This has been another recording of Mocha Money Monday. I'm Ashley Scott, one of your P3 elite coaches, here with Miss Rhonda Novak.
It's me, girl. It's me. And
yes.
Let's give a shout out to P3 and our coaches, our elite coaches. Listen, guys, if you are really considering raising capital, come talk to us. Let's coach you through that thing. Let's give you a little bit of support to help you figure out if you need it, what you need, how much you need. Come see us. Check us out at the website. Ashley give all the information they need to find where they can find us and how we can help them and support them. Come see us, y'all. Come see us. We waiting on you. We waiting on you to get to the next level, to stretch. We waiting on you.
And that is correct. So you're going to go ahead and check out p3global.com. We are ready and waiting for you with our P3 coaches to put you on the pathway to prosperity. We want you to get your passport to prosperity, a customized opportunity to look at your business and analyze where you are and where you need to go next. We have the coaching resources, courses, and the connections, whether that is with lending institutions, accountants, virtual assistants, whatever it is you need, we've got you covered. So please stay connected with us, and we will see you next Monday for Mocha Money Monday. Thank you for watching, and God bless you all.
All right, guys, have a good Monday. Done.